Hello, everybody. Welcome this afternoon or evening, wherever you are. Welcome to our 7th Narcolepsy Nerd Alert broadcast. I'm Julie Flygare. I'm the president and CEO of Project Sleep, and I'm joining you from Los Angeles, California. And I have my colleague, Lauren, here. Hey, Lauren.
Hi,
Where are you joining us from?
I'm in Central Virginia. It is hot and humid here. Yeah.
We're so excited to have two special guests. So we have Danielle Brooks and Kenya Gradnigo. Am I saying it right? Gradnigo.
Gradnigo, yes, ma'am.
Gradnigo. Okay. Oh my God, I looked at it a million times and now I just realized I didn't know how to say it. Okay, typical. Anyway, we're really excited to have our special guests here tonight. We'll have them introduce themselves in just a second. But first, let me go ahead and pull up the slides if I can find them. Let's see. Oops, I'm at the end of the presentation. Start the beginning. Present. Okay. Lauren, you want to take it away with some intros?
Yeah, so we are really excited for our topic today. We're going to be talking about navigating school with narcolepsy. Before we get started, just a few little housekeeping tips. When you join us, please share where you're tuning in from. We love to see where everybody is from. If you like, you can share your brand of nerdiness in the comments. Please like, comment, and share this video. The more likes and comments and shares we get, the more people will reach through Facebook. Do remember, please, though, that the video is going to be recorded and your comments will be public, so they'll all stay with the video. So just make sure you're only sharing things that you're comfortable with everybody seeing. The Narcolepsy Nerd Alert broadcasts are for educational and entertainment purposes, not to give medical advice. So if anything comes up that sparks questions about your condition or your medical care, we ask that you would bring those to your neurologist or sleep specialist. After each broadcast, we put together a companion toolkit that highlights everybody's comments and insights. So look out for that a little bit later in the month or next month.
Thank you, Lauren. Before we continue, though, we gotta let people know what brand of nerdiness kind of means. So, well, today I'm gonna go with a different new nerdiness. Maybe for me is I'm trying to become a plant nerd. I've recently invested in some serious plants, so I'm hoping that the nerdiness kicks in and that I can learn how to keep these things alive and thrive. So maybe that's going to be a new brand of nerdiness. And I think, Lauren, you said you kind of have usually you have one brand, but you were talking about a new one.
I do. Normally I would say I'm a data nerd, but right now I am a DIY home project nerd because I'm trying to sell my house and there's lots of little things to do. I re-engineered a bathroom fan and it doesn't even rattle. And I installed a bathroom sink and I just love that feeling. It's great. I think I found a new passion.
Wow, well, you can come over here next and fix my ceiling fan. All right, and we'll get to our guest brand of nerdiness as well in a second.
Okay.
But Lauren, you want to go ahead and put these questions to the group?
Yeah, so as we're going through the broadcast today, we would love to hear what you think too. We have two questions for you specifically. If you've had accommodations at school that have been helpful for you, we'd love to know what those are. And then our second question is, what advice would you give to other students or parents who are navigating school with narcolepsy?
Yay, we can't wait to hear what you think. So just really quickly before oh gosh, am I gonna already cry? Oh no. It's a huge honor today to invite Kenya and Danielle to be on this broadcast. It kind of feels like yesterday that they were both recipients of scholarships with Project Sleep's Jack and Julie Narcolepsy Scholarship Program in 2015. And then connecting with them and preparing for this broadcast and just realizing how much time has passed and all the amazing things that they've accomplished since is just kind of astounding. So really excited for you guys to hear from them today. So if you want to introduce themselves, Kenya, you want to go first and just share a little bit about your background?
All right. Hi, I'm Kenya Gradnigo. I am currently in Opelousas, Louisiana, and that's where I'm from. So I pretty much been diagnosed with narcolepsy since I was about 9 years old. And I have narcolepsy with cataplexy, and I'm currently attending Pineville, Louisiana at Louisiana College, getting my master's in social work. And I do have my undergraduate bachelor's degree from Northwestern State University in Natchitoches, Louisiana.
What did you do your undergrad in? I was trying to remember.
Psychology with a concentration of substance abuse.
Wow, so cool. All right, Danielle.
My name is Danielle, and I was diagnosed with narcolepsy at the age of 14. So I was a freshman in high school. I got it about like 7th or 8th grade is when I first started having symptoms. I have a cataplexy as well, and I actually have a service dog for my narcolepsy and cataplexy. His name is Rolo, and he's currently sleeping right now. I'll show him a little bit later, maybe at the end of the podcast. I went to the University of Georgia and got my bachelor's in communication science and disorders. And I just graduated with my master's in speech language pathology from Georgia State University. This past weekend was my last day of my internship was last week. So I am now in my new classroom at a school in Gwinnett County. I'll be working as a speech language pathologist. So I'll get to work with kiddos who have accommodations and, as well as just all of the population in the school. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Thank you. It's so exciting that you've just graduated. I remember I saw the photos just the other day and I was getting all teary. You guys have to, you don't have to have, but if you consider yourself a nerd in any way, Kenya, what brand of nerdiness might you have?
Definitely cooking right now. I love watching cooking shows, Food Network. I'm a big foodie. I love to eat. I love to cook. I am from Louisiana, and that's one of our biggest heritage right here in Louisiana, especially Opelousas. So cooking right now is one of my nerdiness that I am tackling. So yeah, that's my nerdiness.
Yeah. All right, Danielle, what do you think?
Right now, mine is decorating and crafting. So I'm trying to decorate my speech room and make it functional for therapy as well as really cute. So I got a Cricut for my birthday. So I've been using that to make a lot of different things. My theme is llamas and cacti. So it'll be interesting and it'll be pretty cute. So.
Oh, that sounds adorable. Oh my goodness. All right, cool. So let's see. We're so excited for this. To go over what we're going to talk about. I think this topic is super important, and I know that there are other resources out there for this topic, perhaps, but we probably can't talk about it too much. It's not over talked yet. People with narcolepsy not only face the symptoms of narcolepsy, taking treatments, side effects, and other, complications of the disorder, but often they're also facing misunderstanding at school, in workplaces, and even at home. And so this is just the first of our nerd alerts to kind of, tackle at least the school aspect. And there's so many different parts of this experience, but we just thought for today, we're going to go over some key tips, a little tiny bit about the legal framework for the American with Disabilities Act and how narcolepsy fits into that. A little bit about your advocacy team who should be on your side in dealing with this process, some different ideas for accommodations. And again, we can't wait to hear from our audience about accommodations that have helped them. And high school versus college versus grad school, the different phases of education, and of course, some resources. So, but just to start, I think this is probably obvious what we think, but I think it's worth taking a second to say, is it worth it to get accommodations, or should you even get accommodations? And I know part of my own journey was at first when I was in law school. You know, that's not necessary.
Oh, did she freeze? Did you freeze?
Yeah, a little bit.
You want to try that again?
Okay. Ooh, my internet's unstable. That's not good. Well, I didn't want accommodations right away. And then I came back a few months later and I said, maybe I will take some accommodations. So I was curious from Danielle and Kenya's perspective, did you embrace accommodations right away, or did you have any of this struggle and how you thought that might impact your sense of yourself in any way?
Yeah, for me, it kind of was no choice to take accommodations because I had them so young, like when I first was diagnosed. So when I was pretty much through grade school up into college, up until now, I had them. And at first, as I got older, I thought it was going to be a crutch for me, but it actually turned out to be very helpful. And I was very appreciative of my accommodation. So yeah, it's definitely a strength right now for me. Yeah.
So I was diagnosed at the age of 14, and it was over Christmas break. So we had some time to talk with my family and find some research and find Julie. That's when I found Julie's blog right after I was diagnosed. And so that was one thing that, you know, I was struggling in school to stay awake and everything. So my parents and I decided to talk with the teachers, and the meetings were, you know, hard at some points because sometimes the teachers may not have really understood what was going on. But that's when, you know, my parents and I talked about like how we need to advocate for what my worst days. And I am so thankful that we got accommodations like from the bat, because I was able to do well in school and with those accommodations. Because, you know, it's not always easy when you have narcolepsy and are trying to figure out medication and all that, especially towards the beginning. But I definitely couldn't have done like as well in school without my accommodations, for sure.
Perfect segue to our next slide. So we just wanted, you know, key tips. We're going to go over some key tips at the beginning and the end, but we didn't want to get them lost at the end of a video. If, you know, I think when we prepared this, we each were kind of talking about some different aspects of this experience. And so, you know, one thing that was important, I thought, as a key tip for anyone is to really know what accommodations you want before starting the process with the school. And I know that's difficult when you're newly diagnosed. You might not know what you want or need. But and we hope that this, you know, this video and the toolkit will be a resource that will have lots of different ideas for you to think about what would be helpful for you. I don't think that now or anytime in the near future that we can expect a school to be able to know what the right accommodations are, in part because narcolepsy is pretty rare, but also everyone's different with narcolepsy. So what might work for me might be different than what works for Kenya, which might be different from Danielle. So figuring out what would you want is a good starting place.
Definitely.
And then Danielle, I think you were gonna share the next one.
Yeah, so whenever I go about making accommodations or writing down what I'm going to ask for, I have to think back to my worst days. Is that without medication? Is that those days that, you know, I can't take my, you know, certain medications? What is that day going to look like? And what am I going to need to succeed in my school? So that is what I look at. I mean, and I don't like to think about my bad days because they're not super fun, but it's one of those things that when they happen, you want to be prepared. So even if something may only happen like once or twice throughout the year, it's better to have that as a safety net. And hopefully you don't have to use it, but you know, having those safety nets in place is really important.
I love that so much. It reminds me of one of the exams I took in a really, really hot room.
Oh,
you know,
not a good one.
So plan to have an exam in a sauna. What kind of accommodations might you need?
I need a fan and an ice pack.
And then Kenya, do you want to share this quote and where the story behind it?
Sure. It's okay to be delayed, just not denied. Where that came from, it was from my mother. My mom is one of my biggest supporters for me. She really took the initiative to really do the research since I was diagnosed at such a young age and I didn't really understand, but she was the one that, really took the initiative to take on narcolepsy for me when I was younger, and then kind of let me lead into my own path in my own way, trying to figure it out on my own as I got older. So in my undergraduate, just really trying to adjust to the new environment and medication and being on my own for the first time, it was a lot of days that I really struggled, like those worst days, like Danielle mentioned. And I actually was held back a semester because I was just having those bad days, just trying to adjust. And I called my mom and I was just crying and just needed someone to talk to. And she was like, Kenya, it's okay to be delayed. You're just not denied. So it actually did take me an extra semester to graduate. And ever since then, I really just thought about that, saying it's okay to be delayed, just not denied, because some of us do have to take an extra semester. Some of us do have to take that break to just step back and just to breathe and just to tell ourselves it's okay. You focusing on your abilities and not your disabilities. So I just take that and run with it. And that really has helped me throughout my college years and hopefully will take me even further.
Definitely. Everyone has their own story to write and everyone's looks different. So
Yeah.
just like everyone's accommodations will look different. But
Yeah, I love that quote so much. Since Kenya shared it in a video project we did with her last year, it's just stayed in my head. It just is one of those mantras now for me that I just love so much. So yeah, so grateful for that. Okay. So just a little bit of the kind of like, I don't want to go too far into it, but a little bit of the legal framework, to understand, does narcolepsy qualify as a disability? Because you might not be entirely sure, and you might be talking to people that don't understand narcolepsy at all, don't understand how severe of a condition or how individual of a process it is to figure out, whether your medications are working, how you're going to accommodate everything. So just to go over a little bit about this, it's always an individualized process. So there's not like a list of conditions that are qualified as a disability in general or for academic accommodations. It's always based on the individual case by case basis. And so how do that, determination get made? Federal law defines for academic accommodations that an individual with a disability as any person who has a mental or physical impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activity. And so what are these major life activities that, have to be impaired? There are a ton, there's a long list of them. And originally in the law, it had examples such as caring for oneself, performing manual tasks, walking, seeing, hearing, speaking, breathing, learning, and working. So, those are activities that probably do get disrupted by narcolepsy. But I just want to share that this became further solidified that narcolepsy would really definitely be considered, a major life activity would be impaired by narcolepsy in 2008 when some new activities were added to the list, included eating, sleeping, standing, lifting, bending, reading, concentrating, thinking, and communicating. So even if someone doesn't really understand narcolepsy and how it affects different parts of life, pretty easy to understand that narcolepsy would impact one's ability to sleep. So, that was a really helpful addition to the law in 2008 that made it more and more clear that people with sleep disorders would be able to be considered, to have a disability. In addition, in 2008, they added some interesting language that said that you cannot make this determination in thinking about whether someone is feeling better with medication. So it's kind of almost like taking you on your worst days, you know. You can't think, well, this person has narcolepsy, but they're taking drugs. And so, you know, are they really, you know, impaired? No, the determination has to be made without thinking about any sort of mitigating measures such as medication, which is also helpful if we want to make sure that as many people as possible should be able to access accommodations. And there's also a special pamphlet from the Office of Civil Rights that talks about hidden disabilities and how, you know, there are disabilities that you cannot see and that they still can very much impact and impair life. And I think that's extra helpful for people with narcolepsy to arm themselves with some of that language as well. So if you think about approaching this process, which is, you know, very different depending on where you are, but just some basic things to have ready. I'd say some basic narcolepsy facts, how narcolepsy affects the student or the individual, and some accommodation suggestions. And your advocacy team, so who, you know, should you think of having on your team as you're approaching getting accommodations? Should definitely be student, parents, and your sleep specialist. So I'll just quickly, you know, here's kind of like what the doctor should provide as part of that process. And then I can't wait to hear from Danielle and Kenya about their advocacy team and how that's been. But a doctor's full report should include like the basic symptoms of narcolepsy, the current treatment options, impact on quality of life, and then things about what the individual is, you know, unique challenges for each that individual. And then they should also include the specific accommodation suggestions that are consistent with what the student wants, you know, so their letter can be consistent with what you're saying as far as, you know, whether that's getting a nap during the day or, you know, needing someone to take notes for you or something like that. That should be consistent with what you're suggesting. So Danielle and Kenya, have you, you know, have you felt like this was a team effort in your experience?
For sure. I was diagnosed at 14, so my parents were a big part of that going in to my first few accommodation meetings. And we had talks before of what we were going to talk about. And as I got older, I started taking over the conversation as while my parents were still present so that I could learn those advocacy skills. If you don't have supportive parents or if they're not there, having someone like a friend or another advocate in there with you in the meeting would be highly recommended, just to have another set of ears, but also to make sure that, you know, you're being heard and you have someone on your team. The doctor's report is really important as well. I am in like fluid communication with my doctor. If I need an accommodation letter, I'll send something in the portal to her and listing what I would like, and I'll send the forms and she'll have it back like within the week, which is really helpful. And that's the only way like I've been able to get my accommodations for high school, college, grad school. So yeah.
Yeah, pretty much the same. My parents, my sister, and of course my doctor and his whole team. I had this one particular nurse, like I seen her yesterday. She's like, oh my God, it's been years. And I was like, yes. So I was lucky enough, because I know some people aren't that lucky enough to have the same doctor throughout their journey. So I am very lucky to have my same sleep specialist and his team. And also it was a good thing for me to have that one roommate as well. That was a part of my team that I could be appreciative of, because she knew my condition and understood that, and anything I needed, she was right there to help me along the journey, and she's still here for me, so I could appreciate that. Accommodation wise, like you mentioned, Danielle, like doctor's notes, very, very important. So it was easier for me to transition to college. So I had certain things such as making sure I stayed on the bottom floor, just for safety measures, an extended time, and really communicating with my doctor, like you said, and also the school, with what I wanted. And also they helped me as well. They told me like, okay, you need to do this, this, and this. Like my doctor was like, okay, you need to request for this. I'll sign off on it. If you agree with it, just go to your school and have a talk with them and report back to me. And he was like on it. He's like, if you have any issues, you make sure they call me. So
Yeah.
I'm very appreciative of that.
Definitely.
That's awesome. I feel like we need awards for both of your doctors and that roommate, Kenya. Like, that is so
Yeah.
cool. I don't know if she's taking applications for new friends, but send her my way. Oh, that's great. Let's see. Lauren, do you think that we should check in with what people are saying online?
Yeah, so we've got lots of folks tuned in from all over. We've got a few folks from Louisiana, Kenya. We've got Brooklyn, Virginia, West Virginia, Sydney, Australia, New Jersey, Maryland, Los Angeles, South Carolina. Did I say Puerto Rico already? Puerto Rico. Yeah, Puerto Rico. So really exciting to see everybody tuning in. A lot of people love the comment about being delayed but not denied. I think that is really resonating with folks, and a lot of agreement that accommodations are really helpful and people have benefited from them or wish they had them when they were in school. Also, you know, that it can be complicated and tricky in a process, and some people haven't been successful in getting them and are hoping, you know, we hope that this broadcast will help, you know, in some way, maybe some information or insights that can be helpful for you. And just talking about, you know, teamwork, talking with faculty about, you know, to educate them and let them know that you want your child to succeed, just like, you know, all the other kids have opportunities to succeed, and, you know, setting expectations that way. Forever Brain Fog gave an example of an accommodation they use because multiple choice tests trigger their cataplexy. So they have an accommodation of getting open-ended questions on exams instead of multiple choice. So that's
really
yeah, that's
All
great.
right.
Wish I had that one.
And then Stephen has a specific question wanting to know if narcolepsy is covered by ADA. I think we might be getting into that a little later maybe. Or is it considered a disability all the time?
So it's always an individualized process. There's no list of conditions that are, you know, you have a disability if you have this condition name, and you don't if you don't, you know, it's always for education and employment, it's always an individual process or determination. The only way that ever really comes up, though, just so people to understand, is if you're denied. You know, it would be if you started the process and someone said to you, well, I don't think your experience with narcolepsy should be able to be considered a disability. And that's when really the laws and some of the technicality I just went over would really come into play. But it should. And I think, like I said, in 2008, when sleeping got listed to the major life activities that, you know, if that's impaired, could mean that one has a disability. That really helped people with narcolepsy and sleep apnea and other sleep disorders to have a better precedent. And there's other precedent in the law for people with narcolepsy being considered to have a disability. So the short answer would be yes. I really think people with narcolepsy can, but it's still an individual process. So to make that determination. But if someone has an issue, we do have some resources at the end to get in touch with authorities as far as if you were denied accommodations for your disability. So with that, let's get to some of these accommodation ideas. So it sounds like Forever Brain Fog kicked us off with specific ideas, which we love. I was just thinking of that new TV show, The Mysterious Benedict Society, which features a character with narcolepsy. But I was remembering those kids at the beginning taking those really challenging multiple choice questions. And I think some of those multiple choice questions would have caused my cataplexy too. They were very tricky. So for, there's a lot of different ideas. So we've kind of listed some different areas and always want to be adding to this list though. So that's why we want all of the ideas that you can think of so that people have more ideas to brainstorm. For managing sleepiness, some of the different things people have shared with me and with Project Sleep is having a place or a time to nap or both. So what is, do you guys have experience in that area?
I do.
Yeah, not me so much. It wasn't like in paper that I had to like be in a specific place or time. It was on an as needed basis. So if I did feel tired during school or class hours, I had a place that I like to go that I was invited to by the school nurse who had followed me from grade school up until high school. She always said, hey, if you need a place to lay your head, you can always come to my office. And I had a teacher as well that was the same. She also offered her office for me to take a nap if I needed to. So that was one of those add-on accommodations for me during grade school, not so much for college.
So for high school, I had a shortened day at school, so I didn't have to have all the classes in order to graduate. So that was how I mitigated that. And my mom would pick me up and then I would sleep on the way to swim practice in the car. But for college, I would have lived on campus and close to campus, so I didn't have accommodations then. But in grad school, I asked the director of my program if I could borrow her, use her office because she had a couch. And she said, well, if you need an accommodation for that, like we've got open rooms. And she got me a couch and a nap room, which I was blown away. And I was so thankful for it because we had classes from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. our first semester with breaks, but it wasn't enough time to go home. So, and then I used that also in my internships. There's with the schools and everything, I was able to have a separate room. I brought a yoga mat and a pillow and a blanket and in a bag and had that time designated. And I would leave that time flexible and like 1 to 2 naps during the day, so you're not, and with like a time frame of like, a variety of time frame, including your setup and takedown time. So you're not like pinpointed on that. So they don't think you're like, taking advantage of your naps, because I need them throughout the day in order to be able to finish strong and be clear. So those have been very helpful for my reducing that brain fog by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if anyone, just a plug for last month's Narcolepsy Nerd Alert, we had a whole hour about narcolepsy and napping. So definitely check that out too for more empowerment on napping in general. And I think that's a really good point, that, the time it takes to set up and break down, but also sometimes I often wake up not feeling myself and being able to have some time to just kind of process where I am, come back to reality before moving on. So yeah. All right. Did you guys have any support with note taking or use any sort of a smart pen? Some people have described that they were able to have a classmate assigned to take notes, or they were allowed to get the teacher's notes.
All of the above.
Yeah. I had in grade school, I did use a recorder. So I would just place it on the teacher's desk or closer to them. When I got more into high school, I did have note taking, or my friends, we pretty much had the same classes. So they helped me take notes, because there was times where I'll be dozing off and I go back and look at notes and I'm like, okay, I started writing a sentence and it just turns into scribbles. So I can call them like, hey, what was this part of the notes? What did it say? And also when I got to college, they offered it, but I didn't really need it because I pretty much disciplined myself to stay awake and take my own notes. I just use colored pens because that's what helped me, like color code and just looking at different colors and not just black and white. really helped me, and it really made me more engaging into what I was writing. So that was pretty helpful for me.
I did not have a note taker in high school, which would have been helpful. I did talk to friends and get notes if I needed them, or my dad would reteach me biology at the kitchen table every night. um, for college and grad school, I did have note takers, as well as in grad school, it was more along the lines of they gave me a software that I could use, that I could download on my computer, and you could upload the PowerPoints, record the session, and then take notes as as the PowerPoint is going on, or as the teacher's speaking. But we shared our notes in grad school. We had the work smarter, not harder mentality. And so everyone shared notes. So that was helpful. But the note takers, I highly would recommend. Also, like at some schools, they get an incentive. So the notes sometimes are really good. Like whether that's like scheduling early or, are getting some money. So you sometimes can pick which note taker you want. Like they'll bring up examples and be like, which one can you actually read? So
cool. And I use the Smart Pen at work, and we just had them because I was a writer at my job, and I was trying to write down stuff that doctors were saying, and they spoke very quickly. Everything they said was super smart and eloquent, but it was hard to keep track. I mean, anyone, just not even with a sleep attack or anything. It was just really hard to keep track of everything they were saying. So the Smart Pens were really useful because you could take notes, and then you could go back and I could like press the pen to the paper where I was, couldn't really remember what they said, and it would go right back to that point of the audio and replay it for me. And also just, it didn't feel too invasive, or I did have to ask them permission if I could record it, but yeah, it was kind of cool. All right, in the classroom, seating, special seating placement or ability to stand. Some people, I've even read, the ability to snack in class. So how about, day-to-day in the classroom? Were there any sort of accommodations for that?
I could sit wherever I wanted in the classroom, but it was more along the lines of like whoever I sat next to, I would tell them like, if I'm falling asleep, please elbow me, and nudge me. And I would ask the teacher not to make it known that I'm falling asleep or not, make a scene. The other thing is when I talked to my teachers at the beginning of the semester, they would offer, like, if you need to get up and walk around or pace the back of the classroom, you are more than welcome to do it. Like that doesn't bother, like most professors, it didn't really bother if I needed to do that or get up and go get some water. So that was helpful for me to kind of refresh myself, or if I'm falling asleep in class, like to get up and walk around a little bit. So I don't know if anyone else. The other one thing for testing, I took all my tests standing up at a standing desk. And I had a chair there if I wanted to sit. And I know some people say their cataplexy would kick in too much, but I would still have a chair there if I needed it. But that helped me stay alert. And then I could be moving and active to keep more fresh. So.
But yeah, same. I had assigned seating in classrooms, particularly in the front. That way I could stay awake, because if you're in the back, then you're most likely to fall asleep. I know I was. And especially not against a wall, because I had a tendency to lean on it, and then next my eyes start to close. So particularly like an aisle seat, if it was one of those classes that had tables and they had like 2 people to the table against the wall, or an aisle chair, I would usually get like an aisle seat. Also closer to the door in case I needed to stand up and walk out, because I would get restless legs, or just to get like a drink of water. And I always did keep snacks to snack on, and something with caffeine in it, not so much coffee or tea. It was most likely Dr. Pepper or something. I would go to the nurse's office. I remember being in grade school, going to the nurse's office, and she used to keep those little cans of Dr. Pepper just for me. And those really came in handy, the caffeine. So yeah, that assigned seating, people knew like, hey, that's Kenya's seat, so make sure y'all, leave it open for her. And I always would get to class early enough to get a seat. And it was always the same people in the same seat. So you really didn't have to worry about anyone taking your seat. So that was really helpful for me.
Yeah, I just love hearing your perspectives. I know you already know that, but it's just really cool to hear the different things. And now I'm just wondering about how many nurses are going to be stocking the little cans of Dr. Pepper. I love that.
The other thing for the snacks is if I had anything sugary, like if I had like M&Ms or anything, I would be asleep. So I had to make sure it wasn't something that was full of sugar. It was like, something like a trail mix without like, and then I'd save the M&Ms for later or something like that, just because the sugar would make me fall asleep for snacking.
I feel like sugar will give me a little bit of a high and then really down. Yeah.
Yes.
It always sounds good when you're tired. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer.
If I want to take a quick nap, I'll grab a cookie or I'll grab a handful of M&Ms, and I was like, that'll be great. Good nap. The next one for absences.
Yeah, so I think for that, obviously there's a lot of absenteeism we often hear from our Rising Voices speakers about before their diagnosis, or often when you're just new to being diagnosed. And so one of the ideas I thought was really neat is that, someone said providing a doctor's note for the whole semester or year as the kid was, newly diagnosed and trying new medications. So they didn't need, a doctor's note every single time. They had kind of a blanket one that they were able to use for the semester of the year. And yeah, I don't know if you guys had any sort of, there are often very strict rules around absenteeism for probably like grade school. So I don't know if you guys had any experience in that area.
You want to go, Kenya?
Sure. No, I didn't have that. I was one of those students that I always wanted to be at school. I love school. So I tried my hardest not to miss school. I already felt like I was behind because narcolepsy, and when you're tired and you don't want to do anything. So I already felt like I was playing catch up, even though I really wasn't. But in order to prevent that, I really tried to make sure I had to go to school. That way I wouldn't get behind. But when I got to college, that's when I really started missing classes, because there were days where I had an 8 o'clock class and I wake up and I'm like, I don't feel like going to class. Like, I'm really debating if I want to go to class or not go to class. So I really did just think about my doctor saying it's okay to take those days, to take those extra 30-minute naps or whatever you need. So I didn't have like a excuse from the doctor, but teachers would understand that. They really understood, I had narcolepsy, and they respected that, and they always did give me the resources to catch up what I missed that day in class. So I really didn't have any bad experiences with absences when it came to the days that I was absent from class.
For me, it was a little different. After I started the nighttime medication, are we allowed to name medications on here?
Yeah, that's good though. Nighttime medication.
I started Xyrem right off the bat because my dad fought for it. He's a researcher. He loves that. It's to research. So anyway, so I started Xyrem right off the bat. And after I started that, finding out that if I wasn't able to take it due to like getting a chest cold or something like that, then my day would be it would not be so great. And so that's when I added accommodation in, saying if I'm not able to take my nighttime medication, I may be absent to class or, may need another nap. So that was something that I put in place at the end of high school and throughout college and grad school. So that was something that was really important, because like the few times, or maybe I was only able to take one dose and I have to drive to campus, or I've taken a second dose and I wake up, my alarm's going off, but I still feel the Xyrem and it hasn't been long enough to drive. I have to make that educated decision, and I would email my professor or ask, for the notes or just be late to class. That didn't happen too often, which is good. So other than that, that's definitely something to put in there, just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking about those worst days, like you said. And I just also think some of it is, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but just listening to it, I feel like sometimes it's also permission for ourselves for that this is part of our situation, I mean, it's almost just like that it's okay to take that time, because sometimes I think with narcolepsy, it's not black and white, it's a gray area, could I drive? I guess technically I could, but do I fully feel there? It's just sometimes a little bit tough to know and to take. So maybe even just having some of that built-in permission could be even helpful for ourselves. So, all right, homework with extended time. Anything, I guess that one's kind of basic. I'm not sure if you guys had any specific thing that you wanted to mention. I think, there was one interesting thing that someone said about having the ability to go back and looking at that they did homework assignments, but they actually had ability to go back and make some corrections later or something if they, hadn't had a good night the night that they were doing the homework. So I don't know if there's anything there.
I didn't really use that. I mean, I did have one accommodation like in high school, I'm pretty sure, and maybe in grad school. Because it's just grad school, it's a lot. But I could ask for an extension. For me, then I would just get even more behind. So I would try to set that, just try to get it done on the due date. But sometimes life happens and you have a brain fog and you need to go to bed. For me, that was like, if I was studying, doing homework, if I wasn't able to finish it, I would just, and my brain was not working. It's like, got to go to bed. The sleep is important. And especially in our lives, getting enough sleep and the right amount of sleep and the right type of sleep. Because like if I could just sit there for another hour, just like going in and out, and it's not really worth it. So definitely having that, like that safety net of a possibility for an extension is helpful.
Oh yeah. I had extended time on tests and assignments. So for me, it was an hour and a half extra time on test. And with homework, if it was our projects, it was more so if it was like, not if I missed it due to like an absent day, I really didn't use it. Then it was more on the basis of I was really struggling to finish the project and I knew I needed more time, and that's when I used that more time, but I never extended that more time, if that made sense. Like I never try to take 2 or 3 weeks knowing it was due like a week. So I would try to have it like the next day or 2 days afterwards.
I also got extended time in high school. It was like a time and a half. And then that was same for college. In grad school, I got double time, which the classes are like 3 hours long. So sometimes the tests I would have like, they would say 6 hours to take the test, which I let my max at like 3. But then I was able to take, like, I had rest breaks during my tests, so I could go and I could lay down and take a nap. Like we'll tell someone, hey, I'm taking a break. And then they could pause my time. That was excellent for like accommodations for the GRE and my praxis test. That was very useful for those because I'm very slow when it comes to reading and taking tests. And also sometimes I'll be looking at a problem or a question for 10 minutes and my brain is just not working and I need to like take it out, eat something, reset my brain to get things flowing again.
Yeah.
Well, we have testing on the next slide, but we jumped ahead a little bit. Last on this one, we just have class scheduling and priority registration. So I know for me in law school, I was able to get priority registration, which helped to get into some of the classes that the dean recommended as more engaging, more conversational, as opposed to lecture-based classes. Some of the more exciting teachers that, people were all trying to get into the class, and I did feel a little bit badly, but I'm really, really grateful that I was able to get into some of those classes, and that priority registration could also help if timing of the day of classes is an important thing. So is there anything about class scheduling that you guys experience?
I was the same way. I got the priority scheduling. It was excellent. Class scheduling, I like to do blocks, like 3 hours in a row, and then take a 2-hour break for my nap and eating. And then if I had anything else later in the day is harder for me. So morning is better, which I know that's not for everyone, but just know yourself. And if you know you're not going to get up for the 8 a.m., don't sign up for the 8 a.m. The other thing is, if you're in college or anything, rate my professor. You'll be able to see which are the good teachers. That's so helpful. Then you can pick out who you want to have. And even if the time might not be the best, if you have a really good teacher, then maybe you can find a way to work that in your schedule. So.
Yeah, I had a priority scheduling as well. I when for my undergraduate, it was freshman year when we didn't have like the opportunity to pick the times. Like everybody had at 8 o'clock class, and it was always those English classes or those math classes. So those was always 8 o'clock, which I actually really enjoyed because I got it over with and I had the rest of the day to do whatever. So I didn't have a problem with the early courses. But during the rest of the college undergraduate, it was a little mixed. Sometimes I would have morning classes, sometimes afternoon with a big gap in between. So it really worked out. And then for graduate school, it was the same as with the freshman classes. You have those 8 o'clock classes, but for graduate, it's more evening, 3 o'clock to like 9 at night. And that's all the time. So you really can't pick what time. So like Danielle mentioned, know yourself, know how you operate and what's best for you as far as morning, evening, or night. When you're scheduling classes, if you have that priority accommodation, use it. It is the best thing. So I recommend priority registration. Yeah.
It was funny, actually, a friend from law school said to me that later, after she read my book, she then admitted that she had known I had priority registration because I gotten into this really popular class. I was the only second year student that got into a class that mostly only third year students made it into. And at the time, she didn't understand. And then after she read my book, she was like, oh, I get it now. And I feel really badly that I kind of silently judged you, I guess, so just, it is what it is. If people can't always understand, unless you want to write a full memoir about it and then try to get people to understand what you were going through. But she was a really good friend. She always has been. And I always felt she was a supporter and always has really supported me. So, even people that are kind of close to you and that generally seem supportive might not quite fully understand. So just a little tidbit.
One other thing is reduce class load. I think that is, I know Kenya said she took some time off. You're taking some time off or reduce class load. I know I have several friends who have narcolepsy do that. So they're still getting some stuff done and some work, school, like in college done, but the reduced class load has helped them be able to stay in school. As well as also sometimes like you can switch out like internships or do like a in-person internship instead of take a certain class or whatnot, depending on your program. So don't be afraid to ask, if there's something more engaging you want to do.
Cool.
Right.
For a few more ideas, I know we're going on almost an hour, but it's just also great content. So cataplexy considerations, I know for me, I felt okay at school. And if I felt like I was going to have, I really didn't, I guess, because I was diagnosed before my cataplexy got pretty bad and I started treatment. So I think if I had a day where I was going to have severe cataplexy, I probably would have stayed home, sort of. But, I don't know if you guys had any experiences around considerations for cataplexy.
Yeah, I didn't really probably go about the rest route with that one. First off, I would just not talk to people in the hallway, and because my knees would buckle, or walking up and down the stairs, like I would try to avoid talking to anyone so I wouldn't like be laughing, and then the fear of falling would cause me to fall. But that's why I got my service dog, so I could, not have to worry about that. But I mean, it's something to consider. It's something to let your teachers know, or a friend, if you have a close friend, know what to do in that circumstance, because you can talk about it and whatnot, but when it happens, like, it's scary to watch sometimes. I didn't realize that, and my mom would explain that to me, but when I saw my brother's first really bad cataplexy attack, it was hard to watch because I knew exactly what he was feeling, and he was scared and didn't know how to manage that. So that's something that, like, if someone, like, if like not touching you, or like if like turning you on the side, making sure you can breathe, stuff like that. Just tell them what to do, and make sure they, like, for me, like, I didn't want anyone to call an ambulance because I'm not having a seizure. Like, I'll be up in a few minutes. I just need some space, and now my service dog would be on me, but just like telling someone what to do in that circumstance. If you have a full-on cataplexy attack, I know cataplexy could be anything from just feeling it inside to facial droop, but
Yeah, thankfully I never had a cataplectic episode like in public on campus or anything. I did have one in my dorm, which that's why my roommate was very, very helpful. She knew what was happening, and right away she called the ambulance and called my mom. And it was, like you said, Danielle, very heartbreaking to hear. For me, when I had a cataplectic episode, I can hear what's going on around me, but
yeah.
I'm like kind of blacked out at the same time. And I can hear my dad like crying. And for me, that would like broke me, just talking about it afterwards, like what happened, what the experience was like. So yeah, it is a lot to take in. So for undergrad in the Office of Disability, when they sent out the accommodation letters to all my professors, they had specific instructions on there on what to do when if I had a cataplectic episode in class, like just trying to wake me up, or just let me lay there for like an hour, because usually it would take me about an hour before I get out of it. And if not, call the ambulance and call my mom, and then they'll take it from there. So I'm thankful that I didn't have any cataplectic episodes on campus, or like caught off guard by it. I tend to know when it's going to happen. So I pretty much like let them know, like, hey, I'm feeling a little bad. So, just watch me or catch me if I tend to buckle or fall. So, yeah.
That was the other thing. Like, my friends are like someone who are dating, like catching me and making sure I get down softly. I did get a concussion in high school from falling in the driveway. And that was like my big aha moment of like, okay, I need to, do something more, which was get the service dog. But definitely, like, that would be another thing for absence is the possible, like, if you get hurt from cataplexy, like if you're not able to go to school because you get a concussion. Happens.
Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much for sharing all of that. It's just, I'm learning more about you guys too. And it's really, really, I don't know. I don't want to say this, but it's kind of comforting in a way to hear, stories of other people and your experiences. Not that you had to go through it, but I know other people will be relating, I guess, is what I mean to say to what you're saying.
You're not alone, like Julie said. Narcolepsy, not alone. That is so huge and so important.
Alternatives to standard classrooms. So, virtual school programs. People have mentioned online classes to make up credits to graduate, or summer classes, that those could be helpful. Or, homeschooling, possibly, stuff like that. So those are things, I guess, to consider. And I'm just going to kind of keep us going really quick though, because I think we're Yeah. So for final papers, we kind of talked about that. Well, I don't know, but I got extended time on final. I found that I had a really hard time with once I started treatment, I think I got a little bit zoned in on Provigil. I don't know how to describe this, but I would rabbit hole down research. I'd research. And so a 20-page paper for law school all at once became an 80-page paper. And so,
Wow.
and I just felt sometimes almost like I was still adjusting to medication. I felt kind of compelled to do this research. And then after my medication would wear off, I'd be like, oh my God, I didn't get anywhere because I've gotten into much depth on, a part of it. So I was really grateful. And I just had a really hard time managing my time at that point in my experience. So extended time really, really helped me. And actually for one paper, just kind of even had a few months extra to finish a paper, my big final paper for a class, and was really grateful for that. Because ultimately the teacher said it was one of the best papers she'd ever received in all of her time as a professor. Yeah, but
That's awesome.
I don't know if I wrote it or Provigil wrote it.
Hey, you're the one typing, so you're good. You did write an awesome book or two. So.
And then testing, you guys did mention about testing. And I just to go over again though, because I think Danielle, you mentioned that you have something like a 3-hour limit. Could you just mention that?
So for any testing, high school, college, graduate school, my limit was 3 hours. So for the ACT, I didn't take the SAT, but this applies for both. I had one section of the test a day. So it took me 2 weekends to take the test, but it was very helpful because by the time I was done with one section, my brain is fried and it's been several hours. So that's something and I also had my own room for any of the tests. That was something that helped me because I like to read aloud and stand up. The other thing I did that with the I'm sorry, that's graduate research assistant, GRE, the test for that, I got accommodations and I got multi-day testing. So because I had the 3-hour time limit, I was able to do the multi-day testing, which definitely helped. It took me 2 days to take the test. And then for the praxis, which is let's say if someone's taking like the GACE or the teaching certificate or something like that. But for speech, you have to take a praxis test. And I also got accommodations for a standing desk, having food and water. And to help me get those accommodations is having the graduate school accommodations and the doctor's notes. And I took that actually like online at my own home, which I loved because then I didn't have to drive an hour there. So it saved me time. I got up and 30 minutes before the test, took my medicine. And so I was ready to go. So I was like, that's best for me. The other thing is with ACT accommodations, my parents had to call 2 or 3 times for them to actually accept my accommodation. So don't be disheartened if you're denied. Just keep fighting for what you need and advocating for yourself.
Thank you.
That was a lot. Sorry.
No, you're fine. It's pretty much the same for me as well. I did have a special testing site that I went to. That was one of my accommodations. It was to go to the Office of Disability. They had their own room for students that wanted or had the accommodation to have their own section or room to themselves for testing, so it's more quiet. You can focus. That way you're not really timed on how long it takes you to take the test. It's however long you want to take it. And say the test was on a Monday, like you said, Danielle, I could have taken it like the week before or the week after, as long as it was, done in a timely manner. That way, the accommodations would kick in for me. And I did have accommodations for the ACT, like you said, fight for it, because sometimes it can be timely for them to prove the accommodations. So I did have accommodations for the ACT as well. I don't think I did take it with everyone else. It was just I had more time. So I started probably before everyone. That way, when they finished, I probably finished as well during the same time.
Okay.
I think similar to what you guys said, when I was in law school and I was kind of mentally wrestling with the idea of accommodations at the beginning, my dean did tell me, she said that if you want to take the bar exam, that the bar exam people are going to want to see a record of you receiving accommodations in law school. And that's so that, you know, it's not kind of like, where did this person that didn't need accommodations law school all at once need accommodation for the bar, you know, that it sounds kind of, you know, surprisingly convenient, I guess, although a bar exam is much longer, but you know, I did think that really helped me to then accept accommodations for law school, which I'm ultimately happy I got, and I never took the bar. So, but I think that's really interesting, is building up that track record of using accommodations over time can be helpful. And then for one more point about that is just that for me, I got 1/3 extra time, I think, and you guys had mentioned different ways of calculating it. Extended time always felt weird because it felt like I didn't need necessarily more time. It just maybe needed to be like broken up time, right? I wasn't like, but it was just how the school kind of understood things and did things. And so just accepting that that's how it was worded, or, you know, whatever, not thinking of myself as somehow like mentally slow or something, but just that gave me the opportunity to be able to walk around, take breaks. You know, I don't think I ever took a nap during a test, but probably just entered some fogs.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's see. Lauren, you want to, I don't know if there's anything you want to share from people's chat on the Facebook?
Sure. So I know we're running a little long on time, so I'll just say folks are really chiming in with what helped them, or you know, accommodations that they had in school. A couple specific things that we haven't covered. Well, these are more tips than accommodations, but Ricky's saying, parents, please be sure to make copies of everything and start a folder for your child's journey through school. That's great advice. And Taylor, Taylor shared her ideas for quiet snacks of smoothies and fruit slices. So. Yeah, and also folks are grateful for all of these ideas and suggestions. We've got some really great ones.
Awesome.
Quiet snacks, what a great idea.
Yeah. Carrots are not the go-to.
Just really quickly, just want to mention, to do accommodation extend to extracurriculars, and yes, at least as far as you know, your K through 12 education, school districts must provide equal opportunity in areas such as counseling, physical education, athletics, transportation, health services, recreational activities, and interest groups and clubs. I'm just going to go ahead and keep moving though, because we still have some important stuff to talk about. High school versus college versus graduate school. I just want to ask these ladies who have made these transitions, you know, how did those transitions go? And any specific advice that is more specific to college or grad school. And then one more question, which is, do you feel like your career choices have been influenced by your journey, you know, your personal experience living with narcolepsy?
So for me, the high school to college, I got so many more accommodations in college. I actually dual enrolled. So I took college classes my senior year, and they're like, oh, you can have all these things, like a note taker, some record the lectures, an audio book, as well as a book online that can read aloud to you. And I was like, I didn't get any of this in high school. And they're like, you should have been offered it, but that wasn't offered to me. And I didn't know about that. So anything that might spark your mind, just like ask and do the research. And so you can be like, hey, I can get this according to the law, right? And for college versus grad school, like Kenya mentioned earlier, the whole, you don't really have choices really when your grad school classes are. So that's why I needed the additional accommodation of a safe place to take a nap and that time to take a nap during the day. But everything is communicate with your professors, and even if they don't understand, provide them information and tell them, and hopefully they will, or compare it to something they might understand. Maybe be like, so my nap for me is or my medication is like a person with diabetes. They need their insulin. I need my nap to keep going. or so then they might be able to relate, oh, wait, this is real. And you're not just a college student who has a terrible sleep schedule.
Mhm.
And I'll touch the last one after maybe Kenya talks. Last question.
Yeah, the transition from high school to college was a little rough for me in the beginning. Like I said, Louisiana, we have parishes. So um, I started off in one parish, and certain accommodations that they had there, going to a different parish and a whole different setting from high school to college, they may not offer the same accommodations or maybe even offer more accommodations. So it's kind of like Danielle said, like, well, I didn't know I can get that. But that just all depended on like where you were and if they had the resources to be able to give you those accommodations. Also, like I mentioned earlier, having a new environment, new people, going between medicines, really made the transition a little harder. But once everything got on the right track, it was easier for me. Graduate school, pretty much the same. It's easier now because I'm older and I pretty much know how to maintain my narcolepsy, how to schedule my medications, and how to time manage those with assignments and get those accommodations. So the transition was pretty smooth from undergraduate to graduate school. And it did alter my first major was nursing, and nursing is very demanding and hands-on. So it was hard for me, very hard for me to keep up. And I did fail 2 classes in nursing, and it really discouraged me, and it caused me to actually sit out for 3 years. And I was like, why sit out 3 years when I could get another degree in something else? So I had a lot of credits towards psychology and social work. So I switched my major to psychology, and I graduated in that. So that's pretty much how I ended up getting my master's in social work. It's pretty much on the same basis, just more very broad. And I feel like you can get into more, so much more with social work. So I'm very grateful about that. And it was a learning and humbling experience for me. And I'm glad that I'm able to share that, because you may have some of you who's watching that's having the same experience. Like, you want to change your major, you don't want to change your major. You just have to know what you want and go for it.
For the last question, did narcolepsy, impact your career choice? I came in to UGA wanting to do biological engineering and then go into PT school and work on prosthetics. But first semester I had a bit ambitious and it was hard. I had like Calc 3, chemistry, coding course and PE and all this stuff. And it was just a lot of classes. I ended up going from 12 hours to dropping down to 9. I dropped out of Calc 3 or withdrew from it. I loved the class, but I was not doing super well. And chemistry was really hard for me because it was just very different than anything I'd ever experienced, even though I had chemistry in high school. But anyone who has UGA chemistry, it's not so fun. So I ended up making my first C ever, and I made a C in chemistry. And then I was like, okay, biological engineering was a lot of sciences, and having the class, then a 3-hour lab, and was really hard. So I decided I really loved science and learning, but I also really wanted to be in a helping profession. And I talked with my parents and some friends and found that my aunt is a speech language pathologist. And my dad was like, great flexible schedule. You get to work with people. It's evidence-based and science-based. Why don't you try it? So I went and I had speech therapy when I was in elementary school. So I loved it because we played games. Like, all the time. So that is why I chose to go down that route to do speech therapy. And I love it because my schedule is super flexible. Like I could, if I worked in private practice, I could pick and choose my times. I'm working for a school. And so, it's like 8 to 3:30, which is not bad hours. And I, because I didn't want to sit behind a desk, all day. So that is something where that's how I found my niche and I love it. And also having something and having a diagnosis really helps you relate to people and helps them feel like, oh, wait, she's done something and is, graduated from grad school or, or is working. Like I could do that too, or I had speech when I was a kiddo and, so just because they may not be able to say something correctly or have difficulties with language or fluency, they're still able to succeed. So I love that advocacy part too within my job. So.
Oh man, I could listen to you guys talk about this all day. I think it's a really cool, wonderful thing that you guys, have some of your adversity, I guess, has gone into helping other people through adversity, I guess.
Yeah.
And love these lovely photos of you guys looking all smart and graduated. And so I did want to really quickly point out, you guys had talked about college accommodations around transportation.
Yes.
Because the campuses are really big. And so if you could just share a little bit about that. What you found.
My campus had a paratransit bus or system. It was actually a van. So if you have a larger campus, not all of them have these, but UGA is quite large. So I didn't find out about it until I had foot surgery in my junior year, and they pick you up from your class, drive you to your next class, and you just schedule it. It's almost like an Uber. They had an app and everything. I had to do it like a day in advance, but I knew my schedule. And also you could call or schedule basically like an Uber. You just might have to wait a little bit longer. But that was so helpful for me, especially in the Georgia. It's quite warm between, August through really even the beginning of November, October, So that was very helpful to help me save my energy, reduce fatigue. So definitely look into that. The other thing is I took buses all the time. And I also have a handicap parking sticker. And I know Kenya has one too. So you can touch on that.
Yeah, our campus had a shuttle as well. We just had to call them and they'll come get you, bring you to class wherever you needed to go. Thankfully, we also had the campus police. So say you were at the library late at night and you probably walk there during the day and it's late, and you can always call campus police. They could come pick you up and bring you to wherever you needed to go. So that was helpful as well. And like you mentioned, the handicap sticker, which a lot of people didn't know they can get. So I would recommend that as well. I used it very much a lot. For me, I was parking right next to the building that I had classes in. So it was handy for me to go straight to class, and then most of the time I had to go right to work after that. So it was easier for me to go to class, leave class, grab something to eat, and then head to work and just park right there in front of the building. Not all the time did I use my handicap tag, because some of those days when you really want to be awake or get some exercise or something, I did park like way across campus and walk. But it was really cold or really hot. No, I didn't walk. It was too hot. So definitely talk to your sleep specialist or call your local DMV and ask them about those parking permits, handicap permits, because they can come in handy.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Rolo's
So
trying to make his debut.
oh yes. Hi, Rolo. And we'll have to have Danielle back for another broadcast about Rolo and the service dogs. because it's such an important topic too. We got to add it next year, Lauren. Okay, so I just love this quote. I can do anything, but I can't do everything. I think it's true for anybody, but probably for a little bit for narcolepsy. And I think prioritizing your time and, being a little bit more choosy about what activities you get involved in. There's always lots of activities on campus and everything. So just figuring out what is meaningful to you and still doing the most meaningful things. So just a few more tips. We have the tips that we already talked about. But then, addressing concerns before problems arise is always helpful, which I think is part of that whole process of the accommodations. It really helps to make sure that you're talking to your teachers before there's an issue. And I think that can be very helpful. I think similar to the comment that someone mentioned already on Facebook, putting everything in writing when interacting with school district, making copies of everything, creating a folder, and really securing that full report from the doctor, that it's not just the parents' inputs, that the doctor also backs up, about the condition and the student's experience with it. So just a few resources to mention: disabilities.gov, the Children's Law Center, the College Board is where you would go to about SAT accommodations, the ACT website for ACT. And I think, U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights, especially if you feel like you have been denied accommodations that you needed to succeed with your education. And then there are other great resources from other great organizations in our space. So just always want to mention the Hypersomnia Foundation, Narcolepsy Network, and Wake Up Narcolepsy. Their websites probably have additional resources on these topics as well. And we're excited to add our toolkit and this video to the list of resources available for people. So with that, I think we'll just wrap up here and remind everyone we have the toolkit will be coming, and save the date for August 25th when we will be going into another form of nerdiness, which is the science of narcolepsy. And we're really excited for that. Hopefully we can secure a great scientist to talk with us about some of the developments in our understanding of narcolepsy. So with that, do you guys have any final thoughts that you'd like to add, or any final pieces of advice?
You know yourself the best.
Yes,
So
and
make sure you just advocate for what you need.
I agree. And, focus on your abilities and not your disability.
Yep.
And turn your obstacles into opportunities.
Excellent. I couldn't agree more.
Thank you guys again. Thank you to our folks tuned in on Facebook. And thank you to Danielle and Kenya for being here and taking this time and energy. We'll be sending some extra spoons your way,
Thank you.
some extra energy, or maybe a good nap. That's what I usually do after these broadcasts. So
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for hosting this and putting it together, both you and Laura. Yeah.
Thank you.
We hope to see you next month, guys. And until then, take good care, stay cool, and
All right.
stay safe. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.